all, and today is the commemoration day, that is the International Yoga Day. On the occasion, and I will just request all my students not to disturb during the 2 hours. So keep in your audio video in mute position so that you can audible. Yes. So today we will start the last part of the democracy and development, that unit 13 to 18, that is political parties and participation. In the unit 13, workers and peasant movement. Unit 14, media and public policy. Unit 15, interest groups and policy making, that is unit 16. Identity politics, that is caste, religion, language and ethnicity, that is unit 17. And the last, the unit 18, it includes civil society, social movements. Hello? 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 Just audible.
Please,
just
sir,
it was
you can
stopped.
continue.
So again,
Audible.
the unit 18, that is civil society, social movements, NGOs, and voluntary action. Now we will start one after another. The unit 13, that unit 13, it is also that covers so many that subpoints, like the concept of political participation, forms of political participation, practical variations. It also subdivided the political participation through an increasingly imperative party system, increased voter turnout, social nature of party-led political participation, concluding points. So now, in this unit, political parties and political participation, just I have prepared some discuss about the political parties and meaning and forms of participation. It is introduced by the behavioralist. Participation organization and the NGOs. Its various forms include voting in referendum, membership in the parties and the pressure groups, government advisory committees, involvement in the implementation of social politics. The question arises, what is the meaning of participation? You see, my dear student, the political participation includes a broad range of activities through which people develop and express their opinions in the world and how it is governed. It tried to take part in and shape the decisions that affect their lives. These activities range from developing thinking about the disability or other social issues at the individual or the family level. Joining disabled people's organization or other groups and organization, and that campaigning at the local, regional, national level to the process of formal politics such as voting, joining a political party, or standing for elections. That means how the people will that participate in the different forms in the that political process and also the political parties. So in this regard, we will see the when the people will join or participate, what are the forms that how the people will join. There are numerous that forms of a political participation. Some of the important participation may be pointed out as under, that is the voting in local national elections, voting in referendums. You might have known that referendums is a device of direct democracy by which the people will that give their consent as and when it will refer by the to give their consent. Canvassing and also campaigning in elections, active membership of a political party, active membership of pressure groups, membership of government advisory committees, etc. These are the forms how the people will participate. Similarly, the broad participation forms are performing social duties, such as jury, ଜଣେ ଜଜ୍ ହିସାବରେ ବା କିମ୍ବା କୌଣସି ଏକ ଯେମିତି ଗୋଟେ ପାର୍ଟିକୁଲାର ଆମର ଆଗରୁ ଯେମିତି ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ କଷ୍ଟମରେ ଜୁରି ବସେ, ସେମିତି ଗୋଟେ ସୋସିଆଲ ଡ୍ୟୁଟିଜ ହିସାବରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ପାର୍ଟିସିପେଟ କରନ୍ତି, ଜୁରି ସର୍ଭିସେସ୍, military duties also, it is also that participation, village meetings and public debates on controversial issue. କୋଉଠି ଗୋଟେ ଦ୍ୱନ୍ଦାତ୍ମକ ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ହେଇଛି ସେଠି ମଧ୍ୟ ଲୋକମାନେ, so they will give their views in the controversial cases. And you see that student faculty committees in the universities and the government advisory committees, in this that field that one can also participate. New social movement seeking and promoting personal and collective identity, such as women's movement and movement for ethno-cultural that identities. My dear student, the proliferation of political parties in an increasingly competitive system also contributed that widening political participation across various sections of society. Similarly, the non-party institutions, जो माने अणो जो दल सहित जो लिंक नहीं जो गुड़ाक, the concerns of the people in the form of that women movement, anti that big dam, increased voters turnout, political assertions of caste and religious groups, as well as the that disadvantages groups. The final assessment of an effective participation and its impact on the Indian democratic process is the subject of various interpretation and also disputes. ये जो participation पाई, so विभिन्न प्रकार disputes अच्छी, that we will try to explain it. Now that in the political parties, and we will not cover in detail, because how the peoples that participate in the political party in different fields, the social nature of the party-led political participation, I want to say that in a study on the Congress, some that alignments of a party organization were found to be associated with the acute social divisions. Congress was found not to be a heterogeneous national party, but a coalition of state groups whose political rationale are divisions and conflict of the state and the community in question. However, the equally important is the geographical specificity of intergroup conflicts. The political significance of a group conflicts varies from state to state to the extent there is variation in the strength of the link between social groups and the parties. However, in this unit, that will not discuss more because some interesting topics are related in the next topics. I will touch the final point of this unit, that the institutional space of non-electoral modes of efficacious political activity has not grown to a degree found in European settings on the whole. However, political parties have proved to be the most effective agents of political participation in India. ଆଉ କୌଣସି ସଂସ୍ଥା ସେମିତି ନାହିଁ ବା ଏତେ ଏଲୋରିଂ ନୁହେଁ ଯେମିତି ରାଜନୈତିକ ଦଳ ଗୋଟେ ଏଜେଣ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯୋଉଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଅଂଶଗ୍ରହଣ କରୁଛି ବିଭିନ୍ନ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ, and Indian democratic experience has witnessed new forms of political participation in recent years and a rise in the quantity of political participation. Though the exact nature and significance of that for Indian democracy can be disputed. So in this particular unit, we want to end the final assessment of an effective participation and its impact on Indian democratic process is subject to various interpretation and disputes. And the next unit we will follow, that unit 14, the workers and the peasant movement in India. It is too important and it includes some sub-points. It covers the points, that is working class movement in India, emergence and some aspects of early and contemporary working class in India, peasant movement in India, the Congress, Communist and peasant movement in colonial India, the movement of rural poor in post-colonial India, the movement of rural rich farmers, movements in contemporary India. So in this unit, what we will learn, that how working class of India, they have been suffered in the pre-colonial period, colonial period, and also the pre-independence and post-independence period. And there is that upheaval for them. Sometimes they have suffered and sometimes they have also that gained. Okay. Anyway, the unit 14, workers and peasant movement in India. This unit deals with the working class and peasant movement in India, which form the part of the social movements. This topic emphasizes that the peasant and the working class movement are led by the left organizations, and those of the rich farmers are led by the prosperous peasant organizations. But the non-parliamentary left, which enjoy more popular support. Hence, social movements are commonly and broadly that classified as new movements, such as environmental movements or old movement, such as peasant or working class movement. तो सोशल मूवमेंट को दि भाग रे विभक्त करा जायछि गोटे न्यू मूवमेंट जहाँ को आमे कहउछन एनवायरमेंटल मूवमेंट एवं आ गोटे ओल्ड मूवमेंट को आमे कहउछन जोडा को पीजेंट मूवमेंट बा वर्किंग क्लास मूवमेंट जो माने इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर एवं एग्रारियन सेक्टर रे जो विभिन्न कारण पई विभिन्न प्रकार आंदोलन करिसंती एवं समानकर जीवन जीविका को किबोली भाव रे बंचैचंती एवं किबोली भाव रे समान विभिन्न दैट समस्या सम्मुखीन हेई जे परवर्ती पर्यायर गोटे संस्कार आसीची जे वर्किंग क्लास पई एवं से विषय रे ए यूनिट रे आमे पढिबा जानिबा हियर द स्टडीज फोकस ऑन द नेचर ऑफ द ग्रीवांसेस that throw up the movements, the support base of the movements, the strategy the leaders of the movements adopt, and the response of the authorities to the movements and related issues. वर्कर मानकर दाबी कौन पे से आंदोलन कर आंदोलन कौशल कौन एवं ये जो तांकर दाबी अच्छी से दाबी गुड़ी को एम्प्लॉयर जे मालिक बा अथॉरिटी किभली भाव रे एको रेस्पोंड करूची एई संपर्कित जो घटना गुड़ी को ये टॉपिक रे अछि एवं इन दिस टॉपिक वी शैल that briefly discuss two types of social movements, that is peasant movements and the working class movement in the Indian country. Friends, so in the phase of working class movement in India, so we have to say the phase of working class movement in India. The working class movement in India divided into 4 distinct phases, such as the first phase 1850 to 1890. What was the position of the working class and how the authority role and what was the strategy of a movement of the working class. Second phase, that is 1890 to 1918, and the third phase, that is 1918 to 1947, and finally the post-independence period from 1947 to the present. So in this way, the working class movement in India has been classified. The first phase, what's that what we learned in the first phase, just you see action of working class in the primary stage were unorganized in nature and hence were mostly ineffective. जेहेतु संगठित से माने नथिले सेमिति किछि फलप्रद होछि हेइ नथिला जो पीरियड 1850 रु 1918 परिचय रे जो फर्स्ट फेज रे ते एते संगठित होछि हेइ नथिला वर्किंग क्लास जोति पे किछि सेमिति फलप्रद हेइ परला नाही. In this phase, that strikes were localized and short lived. दीर्घतम नथिला बेसी दिन करनथिले स्ट्राइक बहुत कम समय एवं आंचलिक स्तर रे सेडा थिला एंड शॉर्ट लिव and were caused by factors such as reduction in wages, imposition of fines and dismissal of the worker. ए तीनोटी घटना पई समान स्ट्राइक करथुले जो कंपनी विरुद्ध रे बा वर्किंग प्लेस रे कोन ना समानकर मजूरी कमे दिया जाउथला एवं तांको फाइन कराउथला जरिमाना कराउथला एवं बेले बेले चाकरी रु वर्कर मान को बाहर कराउथला. So आर विरुद्ध समान स्ट्राइक करथले. These actions and militancy developed the consciousness. These movements were not individual issues but on broader economic questions, thus leading to a gradual improvement later on. My dear friends, the first phase was the starting point of a working class movement. The workers, they become conscious about their rights and their liberties in their concerned field. The second phase, it starts from 1918 till independence, 1918 ପୁଣି ସ୍ୱାଧୀନତା ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ. So after First World War, the working class struggle in the country entered into a different phase. The unorganized movement of the workers took an organized form. ঠিক দ্বিতীয় বিশ্বযুদ্ধ ପରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପ୍ରଥମେ କନସସ୍ ହେଇସାରିଛନ୍ତି ଗୋଟେ ଉପଯୁକ୍ତ ସଂଗଠନ ହିସାବରେ ସେମାନେ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବା ପାଇଁ, ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ. So the trade union were formed on modern lines. In 1920, that the attempt to form an all India organization was made, in which that Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was instrumental. Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was the instrumental in the formation of the All India Trade Union Congress. ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁ AITUC short form. The Indian National Congress started thinking of mobilizing the working class from 1920. 80 ପିଲାମାନେ I would say that why the Indian National Congress mobilized to the working class, because 1920 was the starting point of that freedom movement. So to gain the support from the working class, the Indian National Congress mobilized to the working class. Similarly, the communists who arrived in seriously became that interested in working class questions, and therefore they sought to mobilize the working class through the workers and peasants parties, who that communist party ଯେତେବେଳେ support କଲା ସେ ଗୋଟେ ପାର୍ଟି ଗଠନ କଲା କଣ ନା workers and peasant party, ଯାହାକୁ short form ରେ କୁହାଯାଏ WPPS, in which they were active throughout the country. Working class କୁ support କଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ କିଏ communist party, ତାହେଲେ କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଏବଂ କମ୍ୟୁନିଷ୍ଟ ଉଭୟ working class ର movement କୁ ସେମାନେ କଣ କଲେ, join କଲେ. So again the movement entered into a decisive phase in the 1940. 1940 ମସିହା ବେଳକୁ ଗୋଟେ that it was too crucial, and this phase coincide with the final phase of the national movement. On the industrial front, the working condition of the workers was affected seriously. এই সময়ে working class condition, বিশেষ করে worker মানে ଏକ ଦୟନୀୟ ପରିସ୍ଥିତିର ସମ୍ମୁଖୀନ ହୋଇଥିଲେ. And the reason is that there was an increase in the working hours. Multiple shift systems were introduced. ଯେତିକି ସେମାନେ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିବା କଥା ଅଧିକ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଖଟଉଥିଲେ, ଏବଂ multiple shift system, ଗୋଟିଏ shift ନୁହେଁ, ଦୁଇ ଚାରିଟା shift ସେ ଯୋଉ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା କରା were introduced. Wages were significantly reduced. ସେହି ତୁଳନାରେ ମଜୁରୀ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମାନଙ୍କର ପାରିଶ୍ରମିକ ମଧ୍ୟ କମେଇ ଦିଆଗଲା. And the workers were subject to great hardship. As a result, कौन हला ये समरे जो परिस्थिति रे दि तीनटा शिफ्ट कले, मजूरी कमे देले, जा फल रे वर्किंग क्लास लोक माने एक महान that କଷ୍ଟ ଦୁର୍ଦ୍ଦଶା ଭିତରେ ଗତି କରୁଥିଲେ ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କ'ଣ ହେଲା ନା ଯେ ରେଜଲ୍ଟ strikes started throughout the country and probably the most important demand of the workers was the demand for dearness allowance against rising prices and the cost of living से समय जो भली भाबरे दरदाम वृद्धि हेतला तेणु से डीए क्लेम करथले जे हमको आनुषंगिक भत्ता दिया जाऊ कारण प्रेजेंट सिचुएशन रे जो भली भाबरे दरदाम वृद्धि हेछि it is quite impossible to maintain our lives so it was the demand of the workers between 1945 to 47 the working class confronted two distinct problems भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार दुई प्रकार समस्यार सम्मुखीन हेले द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ लार्ज स्केल दैट रिट्रेंचमेंट्स एंड आल्सो द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ डिक्लाइन इन अर्निंग्स दी दुई प्रकार कोन लार्ज स्केल रिट्रेंचमेंट माने कंपनी रु बा कर्म क्षेत्र रु समान को बाहर कर देबा बाहर कर दोथले एवं डिक्लाइन इन अर्निंग्स एज ए रिजल्ट द नंबर ऑफ स्ट्राइक्स reached a peak in 1947 ये जो मास रिट्रेंचमेंट विरोध करी कौन हला ना वर्कर माने जो पूरा मूवमेंट को क्लाइमेक्स रे पहुंचे नेक्स्ट ये होची थिला 1947 पर्यंत अर्थात जो 1850 to 1947 ये जो फेज गुड़ी को रे या होची अवस्था थिला वर्किंग क्लास रे नेक्स्ट द मूवमेंट सिंस इंडिपेंडेंस 1947 मसीहा अगस्त 15 तारिख जते बेले स्वाधीनता लाभ कला परे वर्किंग क्लास का कंडीशन कोन थिला एवं किबोली भाबरे वर्किंग क्लास मूवमेंट आरंभ होइतला सो that we will know in this particular point the movement since independence the transfer of power and independence in 1947 that meant a different atmosphere for the entire working class in the country what was the atmosphere then from 1947 to 1960 new industries gave a better condition of life to the working class as a result strike was declined तेणु स्वाधीनतार स्वाद बोधे भलो थिला 1947 रु 60 मसिया पर्यंत वर्किंग कंडीशन भलो थिला एवं जोथि पे जो वर्किंग क्लास और स्ट्राइक करू नथिले towards the 1970 due to inflation the real wages of the working class were declined तो 1970 मसिया बेलको कोन हला मुद्रास्फीति जेमिति हला तेणु जो वर्कर मानकर जो पारिश्रमिक जो मजूरी ताको कोन करा हला ना कमी दिया गेला एज ए रिजल्ट disputes in the industrial front increased विशेष करी शिल्प जो कारखाना मानकरे अधिक परिमाण रे जो देखा गला जो द्वंद्व वर्कर माने कंपनी को स्ट्राइक कले बंद कले so for the country from 1960 till imposition of the emergency was a period of political turmoil which significantly affected and shaped the working class movement in the country तेणु जो 1960 मसीह पुणी जो एमरजेंसी 1975 मसीह जो एमरजेंसी पीरियड पर्यंत द वर्किंग क्लास मूवमेंट कहीं यह गोटे दहनीय अवस्था थिला गोटे विपदपूर्ण अवस्था थिला कारण वर्किंग क्लास लोक अधिक परिमाण रे क्षति भोगिथिले कहीं ना ड्यू टू दैट सेंट्रलाइजिंग of power by Indira Gandhi, capitalist class restored to new forms of offensive, that is lockouts of factories was lost the working days. फैक्ट्री मालिक गोटे कायदा पाइगले कौन ना आम लकआउट करवा किछि वर्कर को आम बाहर करदबा तेणु अधिक दिन जो लकआउट रहा बंद रहा फैक्ट्री गुड़िक सो इट अफेक्टेड द लाइव्स ऑफ द वर्किंग क्लास बिकॉज वर्किंग डेज were too less. So number of strikes started. The most important strike that took place was railway strike of 1974. My dear student, please keep your audio video in mute position. So one of the important strike was railway strike of 1974. The strike was important because it was the only strike that was able to challenge the might of the Indian state. Railway strike ita एभली भाबरे जे दृढ़ थिला जे सेठी जे भारत सरकार को सम्मुखीन करथिला जे रेलवे वर्कर मानकर जो शक्ति ऑर्गेनाइज्ड संगठित जो स्ट्राइक भारत सरकार को कौन करथिला ना सामना करथिला एवं भारत सरकार इस वर्किंग क्लास मानकर ए जो आंदोलन देखी तो they changed their attitude since the late 1980 तेणु 1980 मसीहार शेष आड़क एवं 90 मसीहार 1990 मसीहार आरंभ रे the working class is faced with two problems. मझिर टिके 1900 जो 60 रु 70 भितरे टिके भल अवस्था आस्थिला 1980 रो आरंभ शेष एवं 1990 रो आरंभ रे कोन हला the working class faced with two problems that it faces the growth of Hindutva based political parties, namely BJP, similarly Shiv Sena and भारतीय मजदूर संघ, so which fragmented the working class among communal lines. गोटे सांप्रदायिक जो हिसाब रे कौन कराला सांप्रदायिक जो विभाजन सांप्रदायिक विभाजन आड़ को नहीं गला ये जो प्रकार जो पार्टी गुड़ाक सृष्टि है ये है प्रथम जो प्रॉब्लम. द्वितीय कथा है द सेकेंडली with the introduction of the new economic policy of 1991 1991 मसीह जो नूतन पॉलिसी है नूतन अर्थनीति and the consequent globalization of the Indian economy, laborer in the country has been facing the might of capital in different forms. पंजीपति मानक द्वारा एक भिन्न धरणर जो असुविधार समान सम्मुखीन हेले, that is problem of that divisive in nature towards communal lines and development has affected working class significantly. ए दलीय मनोभाव को नहीं ये होची हिंदुत्व ये मुस्लिम ओरे जो कम्युनल जो डिवीजन जो सृष्टि करा गला, so it was affected seriously to the working class. Next, the introduction of a new economic policy since 1991 had severely affected the working class in the country. हमें एपटे कहउचंती जे 1991 मसिया रे नूतन नीति हैला, नूतन नीति तवर वर्किंग क्लास को सपोर्ट करिया कथा, but what was the problem? How it was severely affected the working class in the country? The core emphasis is on liberalization, privatization and globalization. Liberalization gave scope for reduction of government control over the private sector. बेसरकारी अनुष्ठान उपरे एते कंट्रोल रहिला नाही से मन इच्छा जहा कले by which bargaining position of the workers with the capital has declined. कंपनी सहित मूलचाल करके एति पैसा देले मु काम करिबी बा एति पैसा न देले मोर मजूरी मु काम करिबुनी ये कथा होची हे पले बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट रो नियंत्रण होची कमी गला ये होची लिबरलाइजेशन ऑफ पॉलिसी एंड व्हिच अफेक्ट टू द वर्किंग क्लास. नंबर 2 द प्राइवेटाइजेशन कन्वर्टेड पब्लिक सेक्टर्स अंडर इट्स होल्ड. जो थ्री के कोन हला ना अनेक गुडी सरकारी अनुष्ठान जो इंडस्ट्री सरकारी परिचालना जो गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर गुडी को सेडा को प्राइवेट सेक्टर को बिक्री कर दिया गला. फॉर एग्जांपल लाइक द इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड इन ओडिशा नेस्को एवं सेस्को दुईटी कंपनी की से बिक्री कर दिया हला एवं समान अंडरटेकिंग रे काम ए पर्यंत मध्य करूछथि. अंडर इट्स फोल्ड व्हिच वाज न्यू चैलेंजेस फॉर वर्कर्स एंड ट्रेड यूनियंस. However, the encroachment of capital on the rights of the workers was threatened. तेणु ये जो वर्कर मानकर अधिकार कौन हला कैपिटलिस्ट मानक द्वारा उल्लंघन करागला एवं तार कारण होची ये जो न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी जो आसिला 1991 that LPG liberalization, privatization and globalization. So these are the working class movement since 1850 that the pre-independence and post-independence era. Now we will see what are the weaknesses. ते कौन भूल थिला जे वर्किंग क्लास ठीक भाबरे काहे कि माने आंदोलन करि पारले नै एंड व्हाट वाज द फॉल्टी व्हाट इज द दैट weaknesses. So following points may be discussed. But what was the weakness? That was the number 1, the unorganized workers are poor and vulnerable to exploitation than the workers on the organized sector. Number 2, the multiplicity of political parties may be accepted as that norm in a democracy, but multiplicity of unions in a capitalist system keeps the working class that fragmented and vulnerable to all forms of oppressors. यदि एक ही की संगठन करी माने कंपनी विरुद्ध रे बा मालिक विरुद्ध रे यदि संगठित करा जो सेठी जो एम्प्लॉयर बा इंडस्ट्रियल ओनर बा एमडी से बेंड डाउन होबो. इफ इट विल बी फ्रैगमेंटेड इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स तमने विभिन्न प्रकार राजनीतिक दल को नै कि जते बेले यहा कोन हला ना भाग भाग हला सो वर्किंग क्लास यूनियन वीक हे गला. So the third stage, the unions lie fragmented from the factory to the national level. That has produced that bitter rivalry among unions, and hence very often they have failed to respond to the issues of working class. आमे बेले बेले सुनती पोस्टल लो बैंक रो विभिन्न प्रकार यूनियन अछि तांकर के सीपीआई सपोर्टेड के सीपीएम सपोर्टेड के बीजेपी सपोर्टेड के कांग्रेस सपोर्टेड डिफरेंट यूनियंस आर देयर. तो ये जो डिफरेंट फ्रैगमेंटेड यूनियंस सो इट weakened the organized that strike or organization of working class. ये गुटे हला होचे ड्रॉबैक. Here we can conclude that movement of the organized workers started when industrialization taking place and the first working class appeared. The working class movement took an organized form after World War I with the emergence of trade unions, the movement continues till date with confronting a number of problems, out of which main problems is fragmentation of unions, affiliation of unions with political party, जो यूनियन कराला ताकू पॉलिटिकल पार्टी कंसेंट देला नहीं एमती अनेक गुड़िए प्रॉब्लम देखा देला एंड lack of militancy by the established unions and a general apathy towards organizing workers employed in the organized sector of the economy. All these problems have affected the working class movement in the country adversely. ये गुड़ाक जो आमे डिस्कशन कले ये वर्किंग क्लास भारत वर्ष रे किभଳି भाବରେ एफेक्टेड हेले एवं ताहार नमूना आमे सब डिस्कशन कले एवं काहे कि वर्किंग क्लास जदियो प्रथम विश्व युद्ध पर पर यह आरंभ होइतला एंड हाउ इट कुडंट रीच द रियल ट्रूथ्स. So next, in this unit also includes the peasant movement in India. So within short span of time, we have to finish all the 6 units. So my dear student, see, the peasant movement in India generally caused due to agrarian problems and land rights. The कृषक मानकर आंदोलन जो कथा कह जाउची सेटा बेसिकली जो समस्या कोठी ना भूमि अधिकार एवं डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ एग्रारियन प्रॉब्लम्स कृषि भित्तिक समस्या को नै कि होची पिजान मूवमेंट होची सृष्टि हेतला. So in this topic, the agrarian movement in modern India may be classified into 2 main categories. One is those of the poor, the marginal or small peasant. श्रमिक माने जो मूवमेंट 3 प्रकार, गोटे poor farmer or peasant, marginal farmer or peasant, small peasants. And these movements are the demands related to their economic condition, that is demand of the agricultural laborers for higher wages and better working conditions. ये जो एग्रारियन लेबर से माने कौन ताकर जो बिजाट मूवमेंट काहे की करे पे चिंता कले जे हायर वेजेस मजूरी वृद्धि करा जाए एवं हमको बेटर वर्किंग कंडीशन व्यवस्था करा जाए. ये हला होचे प्रथम प्रॉब्लम. द्वितीय कथा थिला कोन ना सेकंड टाइप ऑफ मूवमेंट कोन पाई थिला. ये होचे प्रथम थिला. सेकंड टाइप ऑफ मूवमेंट इज मोर प्रॉस्परस peasants, those who produce a considerable surplus within that rural economy. जे कृषि क्षेत्र रु समाने जो उत्पादन करुथिले एवं सरप्लस जो होतला समाने किमिति उचित दाम रे बिक्री करिवे एवं किभଳି भाबरे समाने तांगर प्रोडक्शन ता ठीक भाबरे जो बिक्री हे परिबो एति पई द व्हिच इज दैट popularly known as the farmers movement or new agrarian movements or peasant movement. It is called the new agrarian movement or new farmers movement. So in this section, we can concentrate on the origins and the nature of the movement of different kinds, the demand, raised issues involved, and the problems with the movements. In the first section, we look at the nature of agrarian mobilization and the peasant movement in colonial period by focusing on the mobilization and movements led by the Congress and other by the Communist Party of India. ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ଦେଖିଥିଲେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଯୋଉ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଥିଲା ଏବଂ କମ୍ୟୁନିଷ୍ଟ ଏବଂ କଂଗ୍ରେସ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଏମାନେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରବର୍ତ୍ତେଇଥିଲେ ବା ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ମୋବିଲାଇଜ କରିଥିଲେ। Here we have to give attention towards relation of the peasant movement with national movement and जो Tevaga and Telangana led by the communists in the first part. In the second part, we look towards the farmers movement, which had become that prominence in contemporary India. So, an analysis of the peasant movement in the contemporary India reveals that both forms of that mobilization and movements are prevalent. So the first is led by mass organizations and the left parties. Mass organization means that the Indian National Congress who supported the working class and the peasant class to start their movements. Next, the second is the being led by the well peasant organization, and though it attracts even the marginal and also poor peasants in a different regions. So finally, in this unit, increased militancy of the rich farmers has been mainly because of their location in the social structure, which gives them the ability to sustain movements more than the poor or the small peasants. जो माने रूरल एरिया रो एग्रारियन लोग किछि प्रोडक्शन पाउथले तो सेमाने तिष्ठि रही पारले जो आंदोलन करी कि किंतु पोर पीजेंट they could not that sustain their demands. So this was the unit 14, and next we will start. My dear student, now we will start unit 15. The most important topic in a democracy and a development, that is media and public policy. Media and public policy. In this unit of topics covers the relationship between media and public policy in the process of development and democracy in India. The गणमाध्यम एवं लोकनीति बा सरकारी आईन बा आईन रो जो प्रोसेस लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोसेस है तो कौन रिलेशनशिप अछि. That means this unit argues that media is an important element of democracy and development because it provides scope or space for public debate on various issues and acquaints people with them. So it is the media who gives the chances to the public to discuss and debate in different policy matters, because media is an agent of a public opinion. So the public opinion will be organized through these agencies, and again agency will communicate the people's grievances before the legislature. So in the contemporary age of globalization, it has acquired an added significance. That is the media. In a democracy, government need people's participation in the development and the various democratic process like election, involvement, and public debate help in that is securing it. In this sphere, media provides that a forum for public debate on the issue of development, in spite of providing information regarding such issues. So, this is the field, this is the stage or particular that place, that how the peoples participate to debate on the public issues. Now, in this unit, we shall understand the role of media in the policy making in general and public policy in particular. Media plays two types of role in the matters of public policy making. On the one hand, you see, it influences the policy makers by putting forth the grievances or opinions expressed by the various groups, including such as educationists, journalists, and experts of different fields. ये होची हला गोटे दिगो जे मीडिया समान को कोन करे ना समानंकर जो आपत्ति अभियोग अछि मतामत अछि सेटा को मथे जणे. Leaders of different political parties also included, religious leaders, workers, peasants, unions, ये समस्तंकर जो अभियोग को कोन करे ना पॉलिसी मेकिंग प्रोसेस को रिफ्लेक्ट करे. एवं यार अन्य गोटे दिग हला कोन, ऑन द अदर हैंड मीडिया प्रेशराइजेस द पॉलिसी मेकर्स or the authorities to act in response to the public interests. जनस्वार्थ को लक्ष्य रखी आईन तैयारी करिया पई ये मध्य कोन करे ने प्रेशर करे काको पॉलिसी मेकर को आईन तैयारी करी संस्था को and demands by opening a debate and educate the masses. तेणु ये संपर्क सरकार नौतबा निष्पत्ति उपरे गोटे डिबेट करा जाऊ. आमे देखुचंती विभिन्न जो पॉलिसी जो संपर्क रे जेतबेले इन दिस कोविड दैट पेंडेमिक सिचुएशन ले time to time different type of rules and regulations are made by the Odisha government, also government of India. So again it was discussed and debated, and the people's opinions, they are reflected in the floor of the house and through the policy makers. So not only this much, we shall examine the role of media technologies in advancing the process of democratization. Media technology सब develop कौन है चे एवं यह किबड़ी भावरे जो policy making जो process को जो strengthen करूची से विषय में जानिबा. So anyway, we will proceed. Then before we know the role of media in making policy or formulation of policy, we should understand what is the public policy. The public policy is a process of democracy that allows the national government, state government, municipalities, and the local self-government or PRIs to implement certain measures that would be in public interest. जातीय स्तर रे हो, राज्य स्तर रे हो, स्वायत्त शासन स्तर रे हो बा पंचायत राज अनुष्ठान जो सब अछि सेठी किभଳି भाबरे जे लोकमानक स्वार्थ को नै कि केबिन आईन तैयारी करा जिवो, केमिति विभिन्न प्रकार निष्पत्ति निया जिवो. तेणु जो पब्लिक पॉलिसी गोटे कौन जे प्रोसेस गोटे गणतंत्र रो ये डेमोक्रेटिक डेवलपमेंट पाई से कहूची कौन ना सब स्तर रो जो व्यवस्थापिका अछि सेथिरे लोकमानंकर स्वार्थ को नेकी किबळे भारे आईन तैयारी करा जाय. The subject or matters regarding health, sanitation, social welfare, defense, agriculture, etc., are considered as issues affecting the masses, are said to be the public policy. ଏଗୁଡ଼ାକ ଜନସ୍ୱାର୍ଥ ସମ୍ବଳିତ। କୋଉଗୁଡ଼ାକ? The health, public sanitation, social welfare, defense, agriculture, all are the related to public interest. Public policy, in other words, we can say the public policy is a set of actions of the government. The government decides to take when approaching a problem that affects society as a group rather than on an individual level. In other words, public policy refers to policies that the government makes on the public's behalf to resolve a specific issue. ଏକ ନିର୍ଦ୍ଦିଷ୍ଟ ଘଟଣାରେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ମେଜର ବା ଆଇନ ତିଆରି କରାଯାଇଥାଏ ବା ଗୋଟେ ନିଷ୍ପତ୍ତି ନିଆଯାଇଥାଏ ତାକୁ ଆମେ କହିବା କ'ଣ ନା ପବ୍ଲିକ ପଲିସି। ନେକ୍ସଟ ୱିଲ୍ ସି that public policy and governance. Public policy and governance ଏଠି ସିଷ୍ଟମ ହଉଛି କେମିତି ଅଛି ସରକାର ନୀତି ଏବଂ ଶାସନ। In democratic form of government, the major part of the public policies are made in the parliament through এই ଟପିକରେ ଅଛି କ'ଣ ନା ଯୋଉଠି ଆଇନ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ମାନେ ତିଆରି କରାଯାଉଛି ପଲିସି ମେକିଂ ପ୍ରୋସେସରେ, ତେଣୁ ପବ୍ଲିକ ପଲିସି ଏବଂ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣାନ୍ସ ମାନେ ଶାସନ ନୀତିରେ କେମିତି ତିଆରି ହେଉଛି ସେ କଥା ଆମେ ଜାଣେ। In democratic form of government, the major part of the public policies are made in the parliament through legislative process. Democracies have many layers of policy making institutions like state, that national government, or union government, the state government, local governing bodies, and the parliament is the out of which the parliament is the supreme symbol of people's participation, where people elect their representatives to put forth the grievances of their localities. These representatives then discuss and debate all policy initiatives of the government before they are legislated upon. The political parties are another form of people's representatives. गोटे जो माने ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ପ୍ରତିନିଧି ହିସାବରେ ଆଇନ ତିଆରି କରିବା ପାଇଁ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ଅଂଶଗ୍ରହଣ କରନ୍ତି, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ଏଜେଣ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ ଯେ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟି ମଧ୍ୟ ପ୍ରତିନିଧିତ୍ୱ କରେ। Similarly, media is another institution that facilitates the communication between the government and the people. ତେଣୁ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଖିଲେ legislative process, ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା political party, that party in power and also the opposition party, both help to the policy making process. And the fourth one is the media, which facilitates the communication between government and the people. Next, media and democracy. Role and its effect. In democracy, it is the people who rule and their voices are heard in the voting booths. It is the people who rule and their voices are heard in the voting booths. The decisions made by the people in voting booths depends upon the information made available to them. The news media primarily provides the information to the people. Hence, it is clear that the news media are indispensable to the survival of democracy. Am I right? ତେଣୁ ଗଣତନ୍ତ୍ରର ସ୍ଥିତି ପାଇଁ ଗଣମାଧ୍ୟମ ହେଉଛି ଅପରିହାର୍ଯ୍ୟ. So we cannot avoid it. Thus, for a society to be free, the flow of information to the citizen must come from the news media that are free. The next point is modern democracy and the press. Modern democracy and the press. The people rely more and more on the media to judge how their leaders campaign, govern, shape public policy, and communicate their ideas. In order to be well-informed citizens and active participants in our democracy, people must understand both our governing process and the role of the media in them. The modern democracies have witnessed the complex and increasingly critical relationship between media and the public policy. Because the course of policy making process, whatever the discussion, debate, and arguments are made that are communicated through media to the peoples, either electronic media or the printing media. It is important to note that here that how media and public policy are correlated in Indian democracy. It is equally important to examine how coverage decisions regarding public policy are made in newsrooms, how advocates use and rely on media to advance their messages. So in this way, the modern democracies and the press are related. Next, the new media technologies. It is also included in this topic or units. The new media technology and democracy. The emergence of information technologies have changed the scenario, the nature of media. Now, media includes the electronic media like TV, radio, computer, internet, social media has become wider than the earlier the printing media. Now the people are so busy to avail all this communication in spite of reading the newspapers. Now information is readily available on the net, internet. And you might have seen in the various news agencies, they are not printing in the press, so they are also delivering their news through media, electronic media. आमे जतबेले खोली दउचंती जो हमरो जो व्हाट्सएप बा नेट सेतबेले पूरा से प्रमेयर संवादर हमरो जो धरित्री से सब गुडी का आसुची सब नेट रे हम जानि परछन कारण ड्यूरिंग द जो कोविड-19 द पेंडेमिक तडो प्रिंट आउ हो नथला जे न्यूज जोडा का डायरेक्ट होची कोन कहतला सोशल मीडिया एथिरे नेट रे छडा जाउतला तडो इजीली अवेलेबल होची. Now media includes the TV, radio, computers, internet, social media has become wider than the earlier. Now information is readily available on the net, social media. The government throughout world are not only using internet for providing information to its citizens, but are promoting the use of the internet and digital technology to transact day-to-day business, which is designated as e-governance. So we are that getting information and giving also the answer through that e-governance, like applying, or we are getting some that certificates from Tahsil, and we are also applying so many that posts. We are getting information. So now e-governance has become an important that factor in democracy and development. Then media and public opinion. It is clear that the media is a powerful tool of disseminating information, educating people on major issues, and also for that entertaining them. It is the power of media to influence the public opinion, which sometimes forces the government to impose drastic measures like censorship. Public policy is an integral part of the development process. गणतंत्र जो विकास धारारे जो लोकनीति, it is an integral अंतर्निहित जो अंश. Press may not report the development issues, but it does intervene in case of a conflict of views in development. Report all perspectives. Conflict ଯେତେବେଳେ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହୁଏ ସେତେବେଳେ ଯାଇକି ମିଡିଆ ପହଞ୍ଚିବ ଏବଂ କଣ ହେଇଛି ସେ କଥା ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ପ୍ରୋସେସରେ ଡିବେଟ୍ କେମିତି ହବ ସେଟା ଆଲୋଚନା କରିଥାଏ. ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ଯୋଉ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଯୋଉ ନୀତି ଉପରେ ରାତି 10ଟାରେ ଯେମିତି ଡିସ୍କସନ ଚାଲିଛି ନ୍ୟୁଜ 7ରେ ବା ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ଯୋଉ ଇଲେକ୍ଟ୍ରୋନିକ ମିଡିଆରେ, so that can be realized. That is why it molds public opinion in favor of one or other viewpoint. Thus, so in this unit, we'll conclude here that okay. Thus, media has emerged as the fourth most powerful institution of a democracy, as it has potential to mold the public opinion and influence the public policy. So, press is necessary for democratic development in India, and that is why the media and public policy is an important topic for discussion, and this is the sum total about this unit. Next, we start that interest group and policy making. That is the unit 16. Unit 16. Interest groups and policy making. This unit is related with the interest groups and its role in policy making process. स्वार्थन्वेष गोष्ठी यह एक स्वतंत्र गोष्ठी एवं स्वतंत्र भावरे निजर स्वार्थ प्रति दृष्टि देता है, किंतु द पॉलिसी मेकिंग प्रोसेस को किभଳି भावरे अफेक्ट करूची से विषय जानिमा. एवं दिस इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप्स इज that are highly practical in the USA politics. अमेरिकार राजनीति, अमेरिकार जो नीति निर्धारण प्रक्रिया रे यार भूमिका बहुत बेसी कारण सेठी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ठारू इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप द्वारा अनेक मेजर्स अनेक पब्लिक वेलफेयर एक्टिविटी मध्ये ही पारे. So anyhow, this unit is related with the interest groups and its role in the policy making process. It will acknowledge us that how the interest groups strive to influence the public policies in the interest groups, public policies in their favor. स्वार्थन्वेषी गोष्ठी किभଳି ଭାବରେ policy making प्रक्रिया को प्रभावित करी तांको सपोर्ट रे से विषय जानिबा. Now their role has become more important in the context of the ineffective rules of the parties in taking initiatives to address the people's problem. दलीय जो भूमिका जितेबले टिके कमी जाउची सेतबले इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप कोन से मानकर जो प्राधान्य विस्तार करूचंती. A interest group, then question arises, a interest group is well organized groups of private interest in contrast to public interest which influence political outcomes to seek benefits for themselves. निष्पत्ति ग्रहण प्रक्रिया रे जेतेबेले विभिन्न प्रकार निष्पत्ति निया जाउची तेनु राजनीतिक जो फल सृष्टि होउची बा जो मेजर निया जाउची किभଳି तांको सपोर्ट रे जीवो से किभଳି भाबरे प्रभावित करूचन. In the paradox of democracy, the rise of pluralist state and the network of groups protecting interest of society as against the bureaucratized coercive state have become the driving force of democracy and indispensable actor of the policy process. The emergence of special interest groups alongside the political parties and a demand for democratic governance has made interest groups the greatest imputes as well as the greatest threat to the rights of ordinary individuals and to democracy. So here we'll understand the actual meaning of interest group. To whom will recognize an interest group? An interest group is an organization which tries to influence the public policy or its own personal and partisan interests without being part of the government. They represent private interests in the public sphere. They represent private interest in the public sphere so that the government recognizes and notices their special needs and requirements as a community and makes provisions for them in the public policy. So that is why the government is giving permission, allow them to put forth their demands during the course of the policy making process or during the time of sessions. Then here we will draw a difference between interest groups and a political party. If interest group will satisfy the public interest, why political party should return? So we'll acknowledge some differences between interest group and a political party. My dear friends, you see, political parties and interest groups are groups of people that share similar views and ideas. But political parties focus on a larger variety of issues, a larger variety of issues. Who? The political parties. And aim at achieving power by winning the electoral process. क्षमता चाहती एक बृहत्तर दृष्टिकोण बृहत्तर घटना उपर से दृष्टि निक्षेप करे एवं राजनीतिक क्षमता हासिल करने इलेक्टोरल प्रोसेस रे चेष्टा करे. On the other hand, interest groups have a narrower focus and do not participate in elections. Not all members of a political party have the same ideas, but all members of interest groups are deeply committed to the ideal and the view of the group and engage in fundraising and lobbying activities to promote their point of view. Thus, they differ over the internal organization. So this is the difference between interest group and the political party. Now we will discuss the role of interest groups in democracy and policy formulation. The interest groups constitute important channels for mobilizing citizens. They work to ensure that views of a wide range of citizens are considered in democratic process. Here, all groups are not equally well mobilized, and the groups who exercise pressure on government may not represent the views of all citizens. Further, for many groups, a tension exists between internal democratic functioning and that professionalization. This panel represents a set of papers concerned with different aspects of the democratic role in interest groups. Papers will discuss the factors related to the mobilization and the functioning of groups, to the role played by that specific types of groups in a democratic politics, and to the link between group mobilization and government representatives. So the interest group plays in this way. So finally, we can see that we can conclude in this unit that the interest groups' influence on a policy making is not a corrupt or illegitimate activity. Yeah, खराब नहीं, but a key element of the decision making process. How? However, that the disproportionate and the opaque interest group influence may lead to that administrative corruption, undue influence, and state capture, favoring that particular interest groups at the expense of public interest. So, despite the rise of interest groups in power and number, आम देखिले इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप बहुत किछि करूछि, तेणु जहाँ कार्यधारा इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप आम पॉलिसी मेकिंग प्रोसेस रे जानिले जे राजनीतिक दलर कार्यधारा जहाँ ताकू ଯେମିତି threaten କରୁଛି ବା ବିପଦ ସୃଷ୍ଟି କରିଛି। କିନ୍ତୁ ଇଣ୍ଟରେଷ୍ଟ ଗ୍ରୁପ ସହିତ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟି ସମାନ ନୁହେଁ। ସୋ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ପାର୍ଟି ଇଜ more not powerful than interest group. Thus, despite the rise of interest groups in power and number, democracy by interest groups can never be replaced by democracy by political parties. Public policy process cannot in times to come depend on interest groups. As a core functioning since their own internal democracy is much in question. तांका भितरे गणतंत्र नाही। इंटरेस्ट ग्रुप केबे भी आईन प्रणयन करि परिबो नाही लेजिस्लेटिव प्रोसेस रे। Democracy is much questioned and is not likely to be that supported in electoral politics beyond a point. However, parties have not lost their representative character and are still the most accepted structure of democracy. The interest group निजो इंटरेस्ट पाई विभिन्न समय रे माननकु नहीं पारे ता विचार को, किंतु द activities of a political party cannot be compared with that of the interest group. But without a political party, the legislative process will be stopped. Interest groups cannot aggregate interest as broadly across a social group of a political issue as a political party can. राजनीतिक दल जहाँ करि परिबो ये इंटरेस्ट एग्रीगेशन करि परिबोनी, but still the interest group have some role in democracy and development, and this interest group is a very crucial role in American policy making process. Anyway, now we'll start the unit 17, identity politics in India. Caste, religion, language, ethnicity. It is also an important topic that भारत वर्ष रे किभली भाबरे जो परिचय भित्तिक राजनीति चलची, कोठी जाति को नहीं, कोठी धर्म को नहीं, कोठी भाषा को नहीं, कोठी कम्युनिटी, कोठी रिलीजियस कस्टम को नहीं कि किभली भाबरे परिचय सृष्टि करा जाय, कोठी रीजन को नहीं, एथेनिसिटी इंक्लूड द कल्चरल traditions, region, all into account. So anyway, in this unit, discuss about the identity politics with reference to caste, religion, language, and ethnicity in India. The topic points out that identity politics is identity politics is a product of the modern times. The identity politics is related to the competition among the identity groups, which could be a result of real or imagined issues. Identity politics has become an important subject in the Indian politics because rise of low caste, religious identities, linguistic groups, and ethnic conflicts have contributed to the significance of identity politics in India. यही को नहीं कि हुची हमरो कौन होचे ना जे द्वंद्व चली भारतीय राजनीति रे जाति, भाषा, धर्म एवं जो जो प्रथा भित्तिक जो संप्रदाय रो जो परिचय को नहीं किभଳି भाବରେ रिसर्जेन्स ଚାଲିଛି ତାହା ଏହି ଟପିକରେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରାଯାଇଛି ଏବଂ ଭାରତୀୟ जो ରାଜନୀତି କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଏହା ଦ୍ୱାରା ପ୍ରଭାବିତ ହେଇଛି ଏବଂ ଫ୍ରାଗମେଣ୍ଟେଡ ହେଉଛି ଯେ Indian politics এবং how the political leaders, political parties, they are taking scope to collect their or prepare their vote banks for next that elections. So that will acknowledge here. Identity politics refers to a political approach wherein a person or people of a particular religion, race, social background, caste, class, and other identity factors will form exclusive socio-political alliances, moving away from broad-based bipartisan politics to support and follow political movements which share a particular identifying quality with them. Its aim is to support and center the concerns, agendas, and projects of particular groups in accordance with specific social and political changes. Hence, so far as the academic usage is concerned, the term identity politics refers to a wide range of political activities and theoretical analysis rooted in experiences of injustice shared by different social groups. In this context, identity politics aims to reclaim greater self-determination and political freedom for marginalized peoples through understanding particular lifestyle factors and challenging externally imposed characterizations and limitations instead of organizing solely माने निजे solely around status quo, belief system or traditional party affiliations. Friends, in this unit, you see the contemporary that application of identity politics describes peoples of specific race, ethnicity, sex, gender, identity, economic class, education, religion, language, profession, political party, and geographic location. In India, it is familiar with the caste, religion, language, and ethnicity. Though India has adopted a liberal democratic policy after independence, उदारवादी गणतंत्र को आमे आपणे नहीं आमे ग्रहण करचंती, आम संविधान रे स्थानित करचंती, but communities and collective identities have retained powerful and continue to claim recognition. किंतु आमे एई संप्रदाय से संप्रदाय, आमे एई धर्मर से धर्मर, से एई भाषा भाषी लोक, ये प्रकार मनोभाव एपर्यंत आम मनर पोछी जाएनि. It was probably this claim for an grant and granting recognition of particular identities by the post-independent state of India. जोथिपाई कि जे स्वतंत्र परिचय पाई जो द्वंद्व स्वाधीनोत्तर भारत वर्ष रे समस्या लगी रही है. The state is seen as an active contributor to identify politics through the creation and maintenance of state structures which define and recognize peoples in terms of certain identities. राष्ट्र एपरि सृष्टि करिছে सुजोग ଦେଇଛି. Thus we identify politics of various forms in India. The most spectacular are based on language, religion, caste, ethnicity, or the tribal identity. Each of these identity markers operate autonomously, independent of the overlapping influence of the other markers. My dear student, in this unit, we have to see how these elements in Indian polity influence the politics and the role of that caste identity politics, religion as identity politics, language as identity politics, and ethnicity as identity politics. So here, how caste is an identity politics. The origin of that confrontational identity politics based on caste may be said to have its origin on the issue of providing the oppressed caste groups with state support in the form of that proactive discrimination. This group identify based on caste that has been reinforced by the emergence of a political consciousness around caste identities is institutionalized by the caste-based political parties that profess to uphold and protect the interest of specific identities, including the caste. What happened due to this? You see, as a result, we have the upper caste dominated. Upper caste dominated means the BJP, the lower caste dominated BSP, eti Bharatiya Janata Party, support kala kahaku upper caste, that means Hindus. The lower caste dominated, that is BSP, Bahujana Samaj Party, including the left parties have that tacitly followed the caste pattern to extract mileage in electoral politics. निर्वाचन राजनीति रे किभଳି भाबरे भोट बैंक तैयारी करिवे, लोक मानकर सपोर्ट केमिति पाइबे, तेणु राजनीतिक दल गुड़िक मध्य कोन ना जाति भित्तिक राजनीति आरंभ कले एवं जहा द्वारा जे कास्ट आइडेंटिफिकेशन पाई राजनीति आरंभ है. Because the political leaders, they supported a particular caste to win the electoral ocean. The caste-based identity politics has had a dual role in Indian society and politics. Similarly, the religion as identity politics. It is the another form of identity politics. It is effected through the construction of a community on the shared bond of religion. In India, we see Hinduism, Muslim, that Sikhism, Christianity are same major religions practiced by the people. Proportionately, Hindus are considered to the majority, which that inspires many Hindu loyalist groups like RSS, Shiv Sena, political parties like BJP to claim that India is a Hindu state. You see, religion politics. ସେ କଣ କହିଲେ ନା ଭାରତ ହେଉଛି ହିନ୍ଦୁ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର. This was the verse. This claim was that countered by other religious groups who foresee the possibility of losing autonomy of practice of their religious and cultural life under such sphere. ଯଦି ଏ ପ୍ରକାର ପରିସ୍ଥିତିରେ ଆମେ ରହୁ ତାହେଲେ ଅନ୍ୟ ଯୋଉ ରିଲିଜିୟସ୍ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରହିଲେ ତାଙ୍କର ଆଇଡେଣ୍ଟିଟି ମଧ୍ୟ ଲୁଜ୍ ହେଇଯିବ. So this that initiates contestation that often resulted in communal riots. ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ଅତୀତରେ ସାମ୍ପ୍ରଦାୟିକ ଦଙ୍ଗା ମଧ୍ୟ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହୋଇଛି. ତେଣୁ the rise of that majoritarian, that assertiveness is considered to have become institutionalized after BJP came to power. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଏଇଟାକୁ ମନ ଭିତରେ ନିଆଗଲା ଯେ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ଗରିଷ୍ଠ ଯୋଉ ମତ have become the institutional, ତାକୁ ଆନୁଷ୍ଠାନିକ କରିଦେଲେ, ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ କି ବିଜେପି ରେ ଷ୍ଟାମ୍ପ ଦିଆହେଲା ଇଏ ହେଉଛି ଗୋଟେ କଣ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଦଳ. So that along with its Hindu constituencies gave political cohesiveness to a consolidating Hindu consciousness and formed a coalition ministry in March 1998. এই যে হিন্দু দল, হিন্দু রাষ্ট্র এবং যে রাম জন্মভূমি এই যে বিষয় আনিলে যে রিলিজিয়নକୁ ବେସ୍ କରି ଯୋଉ ମାନେ ଆଇଡେଣ୍ଟିଫିକେସନ ଆଣିଲେ ଏବଂ ଯୋଉ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ଥିଲା ଯୋଉ ହିନ୍ଦୁ କନଷ୍ଟିଚୁଏନ୍ସିଜ ତାଙ୍କ ମନ ଭିତରେ ଏଇ ପ୍ରକାର ଧାରଣା ଆଣି ସେ ଯୋଉ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଲୟାଲିଷ୍ଟ ମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ମାର୍ଚ୍ଚ 1998 ରେ ହଉଛି ବିଜେପି ପାୱାରକୁ ଆସିଲା. So thus differences of caste groups within a homogeneous Hindu identity, linguistic and sectional differences within Islam are that helped to create a homogeneous religious identity. So this was that factor that why religious identity and conflict has become an important issue in Indian polity and which has become challenge towards the democracy and the development. Next, the another issue, the identity politics, is language. The linguistic division have seen that complicated by the lack of uniform language policy for that entire country. ସର୍ବଭାରତୀୟ ସ୍ତରରେ ଗୋଟିଏ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ହବା ପାଇଁ ସ୍ଥିର ହେଇପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ, ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ଭିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଦିଆଗଲା. Since in each state the dominant regional language is often used as the medium of instruction and social communication, the consequence that Consequent, the affinity and allegiance that develops towards one's own language gets expressed even one outside one's state of that origin. For example, the formation of linguistic, cultural, and social groups outside one's state of origin help to consolidate the unity and a sense of community in a separate linguistic society. Thus, language becomes an important premise on which group identities are organized and establishes the conditions for defining the in graph and out, in group and out group. In group and out group data ka सृष्टि. Considering the linguistic point of view that many states they have been emerged like the recent past the Telangana and the Jharkhand and so many states so they have created the secession how they will elope from the central government, the center, that is the Union of India. So that is why taking into consideration these language, some political parties they started to win the race, that means the election. So language, some political parties, they are winning the election propaganda and election that fields because on the basis of language, some states have been formed in the past and the recent past, that is the example of Telangana and Jharkhand. Similarly, ethnicity is also identity politics. Ethnic identity, so very simple. So ethnic politics refers to a situation in which politicians tend to mobilize support on the basis of an appeal to ethnic identity, and people tend to support leaders from the same ethnic group. Ethnic identity cannot be formed on the basis on a culture, custom, religion, that religion, caste, which is considered as the most common way of formation of the ethnic identity. But why ethnic conflict arises? Ethnic conflict, insurgency and autonomy, that movements in several parts of India are examples of the identity politics in India. Just we'll give an example of the Bodo of Assam, the Gurkha of West Bengal. So they are demanding the ethnic identity. They want a separate identity of their ethnicity and get liberate their region and trying to secession from that Indian Union. So finally, in this unit, the democratic political system in India enables the various groups to organize and assert on the basis of the common attributes which they share. Identity politics has both negative and positive roles in Indian politics. So, dear student, we will finally touch the last unit, which is also related to the present scenario of globalization. And now the situation is so crucial. The hope of the people of India is civil society. And the civil society has become an indispensable for the democracy and development. Without a civil society, the basic human needs cannot be recognized. And the people, they are not able to recognize their rights. But why? And what is civil society, or what is the concept of civil society? Whether it is within the state or outside the state, and what is its role? So in this unit deals with the civil society with reference to social movement, NGOs, and voluntary action. It analyzes that the state-centered approach of development has resulted in the erosion of the credibility of the state's efficacy. The role of the state is being taken over by the civil society. The role of civil society has become precondition to an alternative framework of democracy and development. Friends, we have to understand what is civil society. The civil society in India considered as a community that maintain civil life, the realm where civic virtues and rights were derived from natural laws. Civil society is not separate from the state. The civil society is not aloof from the state, but they underlined the coexistence of the state and the civil society. In case of India, you will see India is a country that has a historic past, eventful present, and an aspiring future. The futuristic idea of new India is being marked by the present government with a hope for better living standard, prosperous economy, powerful defense settlement, harmonious society in the years to come, for which budget has been allocated, schemes have been launched, and awareness campaigns have been started to achieve the objectives. But this seems to be inadequate. ये जेते गुड़िका आमे देखुचंती जो भविष्यत भारत पाई ये सब गुड़िक असफल हब. But this seems to be inadequate as far as creating a newer version of India is concerned without the active participation of civil society. In a civil society, people voluntarily come together to achieve the desired objectives of welfare of the society or to raise problem of people before the state. That means it is within the state, but it acts just like a bridge between the people and the state. The state just overlooks some that points or some area. It is the civil society which bring to the notice of the state that these areas have been neglected. Basically, we say, basically the voids of the state can be rightly filled by civil society. ରାସ୍ତା ତିଆରି ହେଲା ବେଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସବୁ ଭଏଡ ରହିଯାଏ ଆମେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ କଣ କରନ୍ତି ନା ବାଲି ଭର୍ତ୍ତି କରିଦିଅନ୍ତି, ପାଣି ଦିଅନ୍ତି। ବାଲି ପାଣି ଯେଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଭଏଡକୁ ମାନେ ଫାଙ୍କା ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ବନ୍ଦ କରିଦିଏ, ତେଣୁ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ଯୋଉ ରହୁଛି ଫାଙ୍କା ରହୁଛି ତାକୁ ପରିପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ କରିବାରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ସଭ୍ୟ ସମାଜ ହଉଛି ସହାୟକ ହେଇଥାଏ। My dear friends, I have collected the data in this regard that civil society. In this regard, India needs the effective role of civil society in the making of new India in view of democracy and development. All the new initiatives of government require the participation and awareness of people, and there is no that better organization than the civil society to activate this objective. For example, involvement of civil society in the Swachh Bharat mission has made it a profound success, because the role of Swachhagrahis has a visible impact in changing the behavior of people to stop open defecation practices in the rural areas. Similarly, the Swachh iconic places and the Swachhata Pakwada are the instances of a role of civil society in bringing out transformation to society. In this topic, that NGO also included. The need for voluntary action arises when individuals feel that the existing social, political, and economic structures of the society are not paying sufficient attention towards same aspects of the society. ଲୋକମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଅନୁଭବ କରନ୍ତି ଯେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯୋଉ ସୋସିଓଇକୋନୋମିକ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ଅଛି ସେ ଠିକ ଭାବରେ ଦୃଷ୍ଟି ନିକ୍ଷେପ କରୁନାହିଁ, ତେଣୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ସ୍ୱତଃ ଯେ ସ୍ୱେଚ୍ଛା ସ୍ୱଇଚ୍ଛାରେ କାମ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯେ ସାକ୍ରିଫାଇସ୍ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ବାହାରି ଆସନ୍ତି। The motivation to do such action is particularly the motivation to do such action is very often unrelated to one's self-interest. NGOs are increasingly being divided as the having an indispensable role to play in this supplementing the development initiatives of the state. जे किभଳି ଭାବରେ एनजीओ किभଳି ଭାବରେ ସ୍ୱେଚ୍ଛାକୃତ ଭାବରେ କାମ କରୁଛି ଏବଂ କାହିଁକି କାମ କରୁଛି ନା ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖାଯାଏ ଯେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ରୂପକ ଏକ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ ତାର ଷ୍ଟ୍ରକ୍ଚର ଯେତେବେଳେ କିଛି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିପାରେ ନାହିଁ ବା ଛାଡ଼ି ଦେଇଯାଏ ଏବଂ ନାଗରିକ ଅନୁଭବ କରନ୍ତି ଯେ ହଁ ଏକ ବିଗର ଇନଷ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁସନ ଏଥିପ୍ରତି ଦୃଷ୍ଟି ଦଉନାହିଁ, ସେତେବେଳେ ଭଲେଣ୍ଟାରିଲି କାମ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଲୋକମାନେ ବାହାରି ଆସନ୍ତି, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ ପ୍ରକାରାନ୍ତରେ କୁହନ୍ତି କଣ ନା ଅଣ ସରକାରୀ ଅନୁଷ୍ଠାନ। The various NGOs, working for the conservation of nature and biodiversity, which are quite essential for a healthy, clean and biologically sound India. The civil society movements like the Chipko movement, Apiko movement of the past for the protection of trees to the present day, like Aravali Bachao and Narmada Bachao Abhijan, try to achieve a similar objective with the idea of New India, democratic and development. The accountability of NGO is also another issues of concern. A majority of them are not registered under the Foreign Currency Regulation Act, FCR, but their importance lies in demonstrating to the public the possible democratic ways of development with their participation, thereby make the people to that pressurize the government to bring constructive changes in the moods of development. Finally, my dear student, give attention in the final or concluding point of this topic or the unit, because it is too important for the social, that civil society role in democracy and development, and what is the real action, and what is the role of the Indian citizen here. Friends, finally we can say in this topic, the real role of civil society includes, like anything, that is, it protects the basic human needs against the tyranny of the state. The rights of a minority, along with individual rights of freedom, liberty, are protected by civil society. Similarly, we have to see on the global arena, peace is being that created by the organization like Red Cross, the Peace International, which help in promoting disarmament, peace, and the new global outlook for future. In many instances, the role of a civil society becomes a headache for the government. अनेक गुड़िए जो अच्छी इंस्टांस अच्छी उदाहरण अच्छी जो सिविल सोसाइटी राष्ट्र मुंड व्यथा कहीं ना राष्ट्र जोटी कार्य नेग्लेक्ट होची सिविल सोसाइटी सेटा को राष्ट्र भूल बोली सेटा को जतले दर्शौची एवं एठी डिमांड अछि सेतबेले राष्ट्र करिवा पई बाध्य होची। तेणु राष्ट्र कोन करछि ना द स्टेट इट ट्राइज टू रेस्ट्रिक्ट इट, राष्ट्र चाहूचे को केमिति संकुचित कर दो या पावर को कमे दो, बट दिस इज ऑलटुगेदर डेट्रिमेंटल फॉर सोसाइटी। ये निष्पत्ति नहीं चंदे जेते विरोध आसु पछके आमे सोसाइटी पई काम करिवु स्वेच्छाकृत भाव। 10 The dream of development in a new India cannot be fulfilled without a vibrant civil society. A vibrant civil society is needed to fulfill all these. Hence, all citizens, including you, the student of IGNOU first year, try to protect the civil societies for a brighter future tomorrow. So, in this, I conclude the last part of the democratic development in the MPS-3. Thank you all. Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
sir.
Huh?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
What is identity politics, sir? Please explain in Odia.
Identity politics टा गोटे निर्दिष्ट भित्ति उपरे दले लोक चेष्टा करुचंती आमर किमिति आमे परिचय को सिद्धांत करिवु जेमिति जाति को नेकी किछि चाहिले जे आमर एई जाति आमे एई कम्युनिटी लोक तो आमको गोटे स्वतंत्र परिचय दिया जाऊ आमे गोटे होमोजेनियस फील्ड रे आमर परिचय लुचि जाउछि तेणु हायर कास्ट लोअर कास्ट ये जो सृष्टि कले जेतबेले आसिला मु कहली हेटी बीजेपी आसिला तेणु हिंदू जाति पई आसियल हाउच कोन हिंदू राष्ट्र डिमांड कले सेतबेले अन्य जो माइनॉरिटी सब लोअर रोइले से बली जो हमर जो कास्ट स्ट्रक्चर है ब्राह्मण क्षत्रिय वैश्य शूद्र ये जो कथा सब जो आसिला सेमाने भी सब वर्तमान गोटे गोटे कहउचंदी आइडेंटिफिकेशन पिला माने तमे जानि थिबो वर्तमान क्षीर वाला भी गोटे आइडेंटिफिकेशन करछंती सेलून वाला मध्ये कहउछन आमे आम आइडेंटिटी रहउछि किमि रहउछि बंछि ताकर गोटे संघ से माने चाहउछंती एपे एवं पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स जेतबेले एई जो विभिन्न प्रकार आइडेंटिटी ग्रुप को सपोर्ट कर दउछंती सेटा इन्वॉल्वमेंट हि होउछंती पॉलिटिक्स रे तांको केंद्र करी से माने चाहउछंती केमिति वोट बैंक तयारी करिवे बुझि पाइलो तेणु प्रत्येकंकर गोटे गोटे परिचय दरकार जोता कौन होची ना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट सृष्टि होची तेणु दिस दैट पर्टिकुलर बेसिस से कास्ट हो कि रिलीजन हो कि लैंग्वेज हो कि एथेनिसिटी हो ताकू नहीं कि भारतर जो राजनीति चली ये को कहा जाए आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स
Hello, sir. Sir, could you please repeat how ethnicity is identity politics?
What?
Could you please repeat how ethnicity is the identity politics?
Ethnicity. Just I gave an example. Ethnicity includes a particular culture, custom, and the region into account. So, a particular group they want to secession from the Indian Union or the states. Suppose I am giving an example, the West Bengal, the Darjeeling and also that Gurkhaland. These are the two important place, and the ethnicity identity politics is too crucial there. The people of the Darjeeling and also the Gurkhaland, they are demanding that they should be identified independently. In the 2019, you might have known that there was the violent riots against that government, the Mamata Banerjee government, that how Gurkhaland should be given a specific identification so far as the ethnicity is concerned. Similarly, Bodo of Assam, there is specific group They are also demanding the secession from the Indian Union. So these are the ethnic politics. And my dear student, and the ethnic politics you will understand more in the unit 26 of the next book. Something more. Again.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hmm.
Sir, what is new social movements as agents of radical democracy?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hmm.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
What is new social movements as agents of radical democracy?
Again, you tell the question, please.
What is new social movements as agents of radical democracy?
Hmm. New social movement. Hmm. New social movement. Just some to change the old one. New social movement, which includes the movements regarding the environmental that movement, how ecological that balance will be that okay, how the sustainable development will be that continue, so that the people in the world can be sustained. Even in the so many countries, they are inviting the new social movement means the present scenario, which is giving emphasis the peace, the existence, sustainable development, which includes that environmental that movement, the new social movement like particularly the social movement includes the Nava Nirmana Krusaka Sangha jo, that demand they are demanding. Hmm. So these are the new things. The old one that was traditionally the land matters, the particularly how the that particularly jamidars they are occupied the lands, and how it will converted to the tillers. That was so many that movement. That was the tradition. But new social film that movement. So they are that join their hands for the democratic development, like the new agrarian movement, the environmental movement, ecological movement, peace movement, disarmament that for disarmament initiatives in the globally. So these are the new social movement. So far as the democracy and the development is concerned. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all, my dear student. It is too late. Thank you, Prabhat sir. Hello, Prabhat sir. So
Yes,
now
sir.
I'm going to that stop my presentation, sir.
Oh, so you
Okay.
are concluding now.
I have already